Welcome into the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnett, and let me tell you, we have the same story, different offseason, because the Red Sox literally do not care about their PR at all. The fact that Kyle Schwarber's gone, which is fine, but then Pete Alonso, and they think that Alonso being gone is, all right, no big deal. Atrocious. Absolutely disgraceful what the Red Sox have done. Then, hey, listen, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the New England Patriots. We're going to talk about, their big game, hat and t-shirt game versus Buffalo later in the show. It's going to be a good one, I think, on Sunday. And then we got a little bit more Bruins talk on top of the fact that Jeff Kent's a Hall of Famer. Really? Really? What are we going to do? Is this the Hall of Mediocrity now? And if that's the case, I don't want it. I don't want it. No one gets in the Hall of Fame. So those are going to be the topics tonight. And first, like I said, we got to talk about the Boston Red Sox. Nothing has driven me more up a wall with this team than them coming out, spewing a bunch of bull, and just constantly saying, okay, yeah, but, we tried. We didn't do it. We were just interested. And that's the problem that I have with them. They're interest kings. And the thing is, there has been no better, and it's funny, because I was right before 2004, so I lived only a couple of the bad years, but when they were actually spending and getting really good, getting Manny Ramirez, having Noma and all that. But no better, I think, phrase fits the Boston Red Sox more than what was said by Lenny Clark in Fever Pitch with, careful, kid, they'll break your heart. This is just the no truer words I think have ever been spoken about the Boston Red Sox and probably about life, really, because I knew going into this offseason that they're talking about a big game. They're talking about how this is going to, they're going to be aggressive. They want to be different. They got a taste of the postseason. Now they want to pursue championships, which, not for nothing, should have been your pursuing all along, but that's a different story. And with that, they decided to let that all go to hell, let that be damned, and just fall back on their laurels, which is to not spend any money. I mean, what are we doing? You have all these people coming out saying that, hey, listen, we're going to spend, we're going to be aggressive. We want everyone to know the Red Sox and the front office and the ownership are there to spend. I mean, hell, listen to what Scott Boras had to say before Pete Alonso got signed, who Pete Alonso is a Scott Boras client. But here's what super agent Scott Boras said about the Red Sox front ownership.
Yeah, we've had discussions that range for 6, 7 players. And Boston's ownership has made it clear to us that they want to add and improve beyond what their roster was last year.
They want to improve on what their roster was last year, which means signing Bregman back, which means going out, getting a Pete Alonso, a big power bat, going and getting a legit number 2 starting pitcher in Joe Ryan, in the kid from Washington, like getting getting these guys, being proactive, not trading away prospects for 36-year-old Sonny Gray and thinking that you can just brush right on by us, thinking, oh, they will understand that a 36-year-old Sonny Gray, who has sucked at Yankee Stadium in over 100 career innings there, he's a legitimate number 2 starter. And again, the reason why the title is Same Story, Different Offseason is because when you go back to November of 2023, Tom Warner says,
start a cheer. Let's go Red Sox. Let's go Red Sox. Let's go Red Sox.
Go Red Sox.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, he didn't say that in November 23. He said that in 2013. But no, Tom Warner was like, we're going to go full throttle this offseason. And that was the offseason you had Shohei Ohtani as the big-time free agent. That what do? Nothing. They lowballed him like it was no tomorrow. Then in 2024, you had Soto's Giving, where Sam Kennedy wanted to come out and say, and go back at the media for calling him liars. Take a listen to this.
If you think for 1 second that we aren't passionate, committed, dedicated to the Boston Red Sox, you're wrong, you're a liar, and I'll correct you on it because it's total BS.
So, first of all, you once again lowballed Juan Soto, who got 765, and you came in at 680. And my second thing about that is, so Sam, do you still want to call me a liar? Do you still want to say that I'm a liar because you don't care? Because you don't. And your actions tell me that. You constantly put the spin, including the fact that this year, Craig Breslow came out and said that you want to be aggressive and decisive. Aggressive and decisive. And just yesterday, Kyle Schwarber goes back to Philadelphia. Okay, fine. No problem. He's a left-handed power bat. Would have loved to have had Kyle back in the lineup. No two ways about it. But we have a ton of left-handers, and to have a guy like Pete Alonso who hits 30, 40 home runs a year to hit it over Fenway Park for 81 games of the year, that's a no-brainer. Right-handed going over the Green Monster would be like Manny all over again, which I'm not comparing Pete Alonso to Manny Ramirez. I'm just saying. And you put the stories out there that you want him, you're interviewing him, you're trying to get after it. Again, talking to Scott Boras, saying that we want to add to what we already had last year. And what you had last year is Alex Bregman, who, last I checked, is still a free agent. So why isn't he back here? Right? The thing that bothers me, though, is just yesterday, you have a report that comes out that a bunch of the front office is dealing with flu-like symptoms. And it's like, you're sitting there going, no, they can't be that blatant, can they? Sure enough, they were. Because around, 11:30, 12:30 today, the news comes out that Pete Alonso's going to freaking Baltimore. Baltimore. When was the last time the Orioles even competed for a World Series, let alone competed in the ALCS? You have the Blue Jays, who just made the World Series, who spent $500+ million on Vlad Guerrero, and the Blue Jays made the World Series for the first time, nearly won the damn thing. They made it for the first time in over 30 years. This isn't the Red Sox versus the Yankees division anymore. I hate to say it, but it is all about now. It's a power conference where you have the owners who actually give a damn going out and spending the money. Is that a wild concept for the Boston Red Sox? In the last 6 years, it's been, because they traded away John Lester because they lowballed him. They traded away Mookie Betts because they lowballed him. No matter what you want to go back and read, and go back and read the Globe and see the spin about, Mookie calling the city racist and all this nonsense, and there are a few dumbasses out there. Sure, there are a few dumbasses in every friggin' city. So spare me on that. But I guarantee you that was more of a hit piece on Mookie by the front office, by the PR group, to say, no, guys, this is really why we didn't get Mookie Betts. Not because, we lowballed him significantly. No. That's not the reason. The reason is because, he hates this city. And then you just decide not to spend money until we pressure you, which I know, love Chris Cotillo, great guy, but just we pressure John Henry, at the winter classic, when it was Bruins Penguins at Fenway, to get him to sign Devers, to finally put pen to paper and say, yeah, we're going to keep you here for 10 plus years. And then guess what happened? You had bad communication skills. Craig Breslow is a robot. Rafael Devers got pissed that we signed Bregman, which I did like. We needed Bregman here no matter what. So we needed Bregman, and they never informed Devers. They never let him know. They never got him mentally prepared. And then he threw a hissy fit. And then you trade him for a bunch of scraps. And we've been through this story before, but the kicker is now we have $265 million off our books that we don't have to pay a cent to San Francisco for. Because that's the reason why we got all those scraps, is because they took the full brunt of that deal. And now we have $265 million bucks. And yet we haven't spent a dime of it. And don't tell me that Sonny Gray and Oviedo are those guys, because we haven't. We need a power hitter. And why are we going to spend more capital from our farm system to get these guys, to go out and build a lineup via trading prospects? Again, I have no problem with trading prospects. But when you have a guy who's making $5 and $155, what's the problem with that? He's 29 years old, Pete Alonso. He's done by 34, which is when most players are on the brink of retirement, going to DH and retiring. Where's the dead money? And he's been stable. He's been injury prone. So if you're worried about that, the funny part is, I'm wondering, do they even know what a premier baseball player costs now? Because that's my question. What do the Red Sox want? Do they want a bunch of scraps, a bunch of hand-me-downs that are making ultra cheap money on super short contracts, that aren't gonna quote unquote break the bank? Or do they want these premier players, but on their terms? Do they want to win the World Series at all? Let alone compete for the playoffs, in the playoffs. Because when you got to the playoffs this year, you sure as hell weren't competing after the first game. Hate to say it, but New York was the better team, clearly. I don't like it any more than you do. But that was just the damn truth. And so when you're looking at the premier players, they're looking at Pete Alonso saying, 5 at 155, $31 million a year at 29 years old, man. That's breaking the bank right there. We can't afford that. No. We can't afford that. Why? Is Pete Alonso this premier player that is joining the upper echelon of the Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani's, Mookie Betts? Not even close. Because these premier players, Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s, the top 16 players in baseball in terms of the total salary, like what their total contract will be, it ranges from the lowest of $300 million to $765 million, with the lowest at 300 being Trey Turner. And then the highest, obviously, being Juan Soto. I just said his name. But in between, you have Yamamoto, Ohtani, Betts, Devers, Trout, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Aaron Judge, Francisco Lindor, Fernando Tatis Jr., just to name a few. But yet, they're looking at the Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso, and saying that's too rich for our blood. And you know why it's too rich for their blood, or how we know that it's too rich for their blood, is because it's been reported that the contract they sent over for Pete Alonso was for less years and significantly less money, quote unquote. Those are the exact words taken from the report on what they offered Pete Alonso. And you have Tyler Milliken, who I do respect his baseball knowledge. I don't agree with his analytics and all that stuff, but he said earlier today, or he's been talking about Pete Alonso, thinking that it's going to be tough for him to get a 4-year deal, and that it's going to be right around 120. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Red Sox offered 2 to 3 years, with maybe a fourth being a club option or something like that, for a total of around 100. I would not be shocked if it was somewhere between 100 and 120. I wouldn't be, especially with that report coming out not too much longer after all of this stuff. And the ultimate problem that I have, and that you should have as a Red Sox fan, is that this ownership group, if you haven't figured it out by now, this ownership group runs the Red Sox as a legitimate business. That's their philosophy. Whereas our philosophy is this is our passion. This is what we love. This team is what we love. We love that logo. And when guys perform wearing our logo, we will love them forever. I can tell you a vast majority of the players on all 4 Red Sox teams, because those teams stick with you. You love those teams. They always have some sort of quirk to them. 04, being the idiots. 07, they were just that damn good with Josh Beckett. 13, Fear the Beard. And then 18, the best Red Sox team ever. And they don't care about that. John Henry is so worried about his pocketbook. It's so worried about his bank account. Even though, fun fact, he's the 6th richest owner in Major League Baseball. And the Fenway Sports Group is valued as the 3rd richest sports conglomerate in the world. Like, what are we doing? This is what bothers me. Sports, yes, while there is a business aspect to it, paying players, winning World Series, winning championships, fielding a freaking competitive team has zero to do with business. Zero. Now, you could say to me, well, Tim, you have to make sure you win the deals. You have to, make sure. Yeah, that is totally true. And I understand the business aspect of it. But in terms of, like I said, in terms of being a successful business, to price out your everyday fans, ranking, top 3 in the most expensive ballpark, tickets, and experience for a family of 4, top 3, to then spend bottom 10 in Major League Baseball on spending players year to year, that is what a business would do. But then what happens? You lose. You suck. You look like the frickin' Miami Marlins or the Tampa Bay Rays. or the Oakland Athletics, Las Vegas Athletics, whatever the hell team they are, the Athletics. This is what bothers me, is the Boston Red Sox are not the Oakland A's. We're not Moneyball. We're not the Tampa Bay Rays. We're not the Miami Marlins, where we don't have a rich owner, where it's not all like we're trying to pull pennies. This isn't us. John Henry has set a precedent of spending money. Now, I understand he got into some bad contracts, but he also got out of those bad contracts. That, I feel like, is the part he wants to forget. You know, with the Kyle Crawfords, with the Pablo Sandovals. He got out of them. And yet, now we're so worried about trying to save a couple of bucks that, God forbid, we meet the power bat, which Craig Breslow has said that we need. We need that right-handed power bat. Pete Alonso, to a T, first baseman. We're so worried that we can't come up to his price, which, like I said, is only $155 million. Half of what Trey Turner makes. Slightly over, but you get my piece. You know, we want to see a team and an ownership that wants to spend money. And the worst part is, too, they keep throwing it in our face. They keep leaking the reports out there. They keep throwing it out there that we want to be aggressive. We want to go out there and win. We want to, hey, talk is cheap. Sam Kennedy said that 2 years ago, or last offseason, that talk is cheap. Actions matter. Hell, they got Scott Boras to, I don't know if he was just playing a bit, or if he truly believed what they were saying. John Heyman, all the Red Sox beat reporters, we're talking about how this offseason is going to be different. Hell, you have Pete Abraham in the Globe today, before Alonso got signed, saying that the Sox also have Pete Abraham said in the Globe today, before Alonso got signed, quote, the Sox also have the opportunity to double down and sign first baseman Pete Alonso. It's not Bregman or Alonso. It could be both. That conversation has been had at the winter meetings this week, and it's not fantasy baseball. Now after this, of course it's fantasy baseball. Do we really believe that they wanted Pete Alonso? Because now the new report that came out says the Red Sox preferred Bregman over Alonso. And yet, less than, 12 hours, 13 hours later, 13 hours prior, Pete Abraham has a story that says it could be both Bregman and Alonso. That it's not fantasy baseball. Why do they do this to themselves? And listen, I got all the respect in the world for the beat writers. I really do. But why can't they sit there and ask the tough question? Why can't they hold these people's feet to the fire and not let them get away with their nerd speak, their gibberish talk, where they're just weaving in and around the conversation? Well, we did this, but we like all that nonsense. Just say no. Answer the question, Craig. Answer the question, Sam. What will you ever spend money? Because history keeps telling us you will, and you keep feeding us the same bull. Why is this a thing? Why can't they be good enough to either, one, tell us like it is, and say, hey, we're not going to spend money, I'd hate it, but I'd respect them for it. That they're not gonna, shoot us off this, tangent like, oh, like living in fantasy world over here, where it's like, oh, we could have Alonso, Bregman, and we could trade for Joe Ryan this offseason. Oh my gosh, that would be awesome. We would be title contenders like that. That's fantasy world. Why I ever thought about that, why that ever came to me, is beyond me. Because, as Lenny Clark says, careful, kid, they'll break your heart. And I know better. I walked into this offseason seeing these reports, knowing I'll believe it when I see it. And yet I still succumb to the nonsense, to the lies that are being fed to me via the Boston Red Sox PR team. I don't know how else to put this, And now they want to shift their gears to guys like Eugenio Suarez, who he hit 49 home runs last year, great, but he struck out nearly 200 times. When this guy plays a full season of 140 plus games, he strikes out over the top. He strikes out over 150 times. Why do I want that on my team? I told you before, I don't want Willie Mo Pena where it's all or bust, where it's a home run or it's a strikeout. That doesn't do me any good. And then, now I'm wondering, are they going to go after the Japanese ball player, Murakami here, the third baseman, the corner infielder, because he's probably going to come here cheap, because while he's a home run hitter, guess what? He can't hit a pitch over 93 miles an hour. He's got a .095 batting average on a pitch 93 or higher. How many pitchers in Major League Baseball throw below 93? You could probably count them on two hands. Like, there's no Tim Wakefields. Love Tim Wakefield. I don't mean this any disrespectfully. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. But there are no Tim Wakefields out here whose fastball clocks in at 80 miles an hour. I'm sorry. Like, it's absurd to me. And Eugenio Suarez, just to get back to him, he commits a significant amount of errors. He had 16 errors last year and has a negative defensive metrics. So again, I tell myself all the time, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Believe it when you see it. Believe it when you see it. Because trust me, they're gonna screw you. They're gonna screw you. They're gonna get your hopes up. And it's like, I know, but deep down, I want them to do good. I want to have a fun summer. I want to have superstars on my roster again. And yes, Roman Anthony is a superstar in the making. Marcelo Meyer, if he stays healthy, could be a legit all-star. And if we do sign Alex Bregman, that's great. But guess what? That means we have the same damn team from last year. What is any different? Okay? Like, I have said this before, but I retract everything when I say, don't go to Fenway, stop spending your money. I retract that. I will never again say, don't, if you want to go to a Red Sox game, all the power to you. But it's not fun anymore. When you're constantly feeding me crap and expecting me that we're going to have the same story, but a different outcome. You're going to feed me the same stuff and you're actually going to follow through on it. Then I will be willing to go and spend and be like, let's go. But until then, I don't know how you can't be heartbroken. Over the fact that Pete Alonso, who was everybody, and I mean everybody, national media, local media, Scott Boras, made it look like Alonso was going to be a Red Sox and that we would have our legitimate power bat. And the funny part is, it's almost like we wouldn't be in this situation if Craig Breslow and John Henry's ego didn't play a part in the reason why we traded Rafael Devers. That's exactly what happened. Their egos got in the way. They were butthurt over the fact that, Devers, pouted the way he did and did all that. And again, if you have the stories that show where he was a bad teammate, I'd love to read it. I'd love to see it, but I never saw any. So, that's kind of where it's like, well, if the guy wasn't a bad teammate, but he was an a-hole to front office and ownership, tip of the cap to you, buddy. Like, you said what I've been wanting to say for years. It's so infuriating, that they don't care. They will lie. They lie to your face every November and every December. They lie. And as much as people in the past want to give Craig Breslow and John Henry credit for signing Alex Bregman, I don't. I did it first, but then when I looked at the deal itself, it was 3 one-year deals at $40 million. So why would I want to give credit for that type of contract? Because essentially you're signing Alex Bregman to a 1-year deal. That's not spending money. Yeah, $40 million for that 1 year is a lot of money. Is a lot of money for Major League Baseball. But when you could have had him for a longer period of time on a lesser deal, maybe around 30 to 35, somewhere in that range, hell, maybe even 33, give him that type of contract. What's the problem with that? Well, according to them, it's too rich for their blood. 5 at 150 is too rich for their blood. And yet, we're the third most expensive, or we're in the top 3 of most expensive ballparks for a family of 4. Between the seats, the beer, the food, the merchandise. And John Henry's over here crying poor, like, oh, give me the CBA next year that I want, which would put a cap on spending limits because I'm poor. And then the funny part is they'll go home and be like, oh, well, we got you 4 World Series championships. And it's like, yeah, take them all back then. I don't care. Like, and I feel like that's not me. Yeah, you could say that's me being selfish, but with how everything is played out, it's almost like I would rather them continue to spend and continue to try, damn it. Is it that hard to ask? Try. Because you're sure as hell on if you're going to keep throwing those numbers out there. So, oh my gosh. All right. That's the Red Sox half hour. Because it's the same story, different year, different offseason. Moving on to a team that actually does try and is actually playing for something. The New England Patriots got a big-time matchup against Buffalo this week where it's going to be a hat and T-shirt game. And I'm excited, man. I don't know how you can't be. To be excited for this type of situation where, hey, we have our team. We have the capability now to take down Buffalo. This could be the first time we take down the Bills in, oh my goodness, 5 years. That's what we want. That's what I think we all want to see. And yet they are going to face a tough task because we did beat them up in Buffalo on a last-second field goal. You know? So to go back to look at the positional comparisons, I did give us the edge, and I'll tell you why in just a minute at the quarterback position. At the running back position, I'm still nervous about Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, so that's why I gave James Cook the edge. But a receiver tight end, I gave the Patriots the edge. O-line, they have a healthier O-line than we do, so I gave the Bills the edge. Sorry for the typo, you know why. And then for the defense and special teams, I gave us the edge. And going back to the quarterback position, this is why I gave us the edge. Josh Allen has played in 13 games. Drake May has also played in 13 games. But Josh Allen has thrown for 3,083 yards. Drake May has thrown for 3,412 yards. Drake May has got a 71.5 completion percentage to Josh Allen's 70.1, but Drake May has got 23 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Josh Allen has 22 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Then Drake May has the better passer rating at 111.9 to Allen's 102.9. And then Drake May also has got the better QBR at 72.2 to Josh Allen's 65.2. And yes, the numbers help my case in terms of taking Drake May over Josh Allen. But I'll tell you, just even watching the two, I would want Drake May right now. With how he's playing and how he's dissecting the game, figuring it out. And yeah, McDaniels is probably a big help to that. I like what Drake May is doing. You know, and don't get me wrong, Josh Allen is a physical freak. He can do a lot. Look at what he did against Cincinnati on Sunday. The way he was able to solidify that game, running the football like that, just running right up the middle, getting those big time yards, converting that, what was it, 2nd and 15, 3rd and 15 there, where he was all the way backed up, but got 18 out of it to pretty much seal the deal against Cincinnati. So Josh Allen can do a lot, but I feel like there are some Josh Allen tendencies that he's reverted to as, from his past that he's reverted to this season, which is why he's got 10 interceptions. But now when you look at the team offense, team defense, the Bills' offense is 11th in the NFL, throwing for 225.9 yards per game. The Patriots' pass defense allows 206.9 yards per game, which ranks 14th in the NFL. Buffalo is number 1 in rushing yards per game, gaining 157.8 per game, whereas the Patriots are 3rd in the NFL, which they've fallen back a little bit since Milton Williams and Kyrus Tonga's absences. But the Patriots' rush defense only gets 89.5, or only allows, 89.5 rush yards per game, which is 3rd in the NFL. And then the Bills' scoring offense scores 28.9 points per game, which is tied for 5th in the NFL, whereas the Patriots' defense only allows 18.5 points per game, ranking 5th outright in the NFL. Now, if you switch sides, the Patriots' offense is 2nd in the NFL, throwing for nearly 250 yards per game at 249.7, but the Bills' defense ranks 2nd in pass yards per game at allowing only 171.8 yards per game. The Patriots' rushing attack is not as strong as Buffalo's, ranking 21st at gaining 112.9 rush yards per game, but the Bills' defense is not great at stopping the run, allowing 135.2 rush yards per game, which is 28th in the NFL. And then when you talk about scoring, the reason why the Bills score so many points, because they kind of have to. Because the Patriots, they score 27 points per game, which is 7th in the NFL, but the Bills allow 22.5 points per game, which ranks 14th. So this game, there is some good and there is some bad. You know, Drake May has not, this is not going to be Drake May's first time going against a defense that is top 5 in pass yards allowed per game. So I still expect Drake May to get his basically. You know, he got his in Buffalo back all the way in week 5, which was a phenomenal game. Really, the Patriots and Drake May's coming out party. And this is going to be for not all the marbles, obviously, but it's going to be for the AFC East. And that's a huge, huge step in the right direction to clinch the AFC East in week 15 against a team that has won the East the last 5 years in a row. What better, and then do it at home. What a better situation to do it in, right? So, my prediction for this game, I think it's going to be another shootout. I think you can't put Josh Allen down. I don't think the Patriots, I think defensively, are going to come out hitting. But I don't think this is going to be the type of game where it was a 3-point game last time. I think both teams have improved since their first meeting, though Josh Allen and the Bills have regressed several times, losing to inferior teams. But ultimately, in Foxborough, I see this game being another Patriots victory, winning 35-27 and getting the AFC East championship hat and t-shirt for the first time since 2019. I think that's going to be so fun, so electric. I know Pats Nation is going to show up and show out for this game because we have the possibility to do more. And I said here not too long ago that this 2-game stretch coming out of the bye, Buffalo at home, Baltimore on the road, which Baltimore did get flexed to Sunday Night Football, so that's going to be fun. I said that this is going to prove whether this team is legit or not. And you know what? I retract that. This team is legit. Now, if somehow, God forbid, they come out, they lay an egg on Sunday, they get absolutely demolished, I still believe that this team is legit. I think it was just a bad Sunday, right? But I will have to reevaluate them at least a little bit if they get walloped. But I don't see that happening. And if they lose a close game, then I still believe that this team is legit. I still believe that this team is a team that can make a very deep playoff run. And we're missing some guys, but this bye week has helped a lot of guys. I think this team is legit no matter what happens on Sunday and the following Sunday. Because I don't see them getting blown out. I really don't. And with how Baltimore has looked, oh my gosh. Lamar and Harbaugh are just looking awful, man. They don't look like they have their acts together. Like, they don't look like the team that I was scared of at the start of the season. So, I'm not worried about Baltimore, to be honest with you. And then we got the Jets and Dolphins. At New York, and we're back home. So, I like this team. I really do. And now we just need Denver to lose at least 2 games. That's what I've been hoping for. I mean, yeah, they got a good defense, but man, they also have an extremely easy strength of schedule. So again, I will say, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We have the easiest strength of schedule ever. And I'm okay with that. I don't know why, as a Patriots fan, you wouldn't be. All right, yeah, we've had it easy. But with how this team has played, how this team has gone and won games, how do they not look legit? And I understand if you want to get your back up because the national media is going to say, well, they've had an easy schedule and, I don't know. I can't really take them seriously, even though they could potentially be the number 1 seed. Why? Because to them, I'd say, have you watched any of these Patriots games? Or are you just looking at the scoreboard afterwards? Because if you're looking at the scoreboard afterwards, that's where you're going to come up with the narrative of, oh my God, Drake May hasn't thrown for 300 yards. He's not a good quarterback. He shouldn't win MVP. What? That's stupid. It's idiotic and ridiculous. So, to me, I look at this game as, hey, this is a meaningful game. And when you're listening to the Patriots players and how they're talking about this, they know. They know exactly what is at stake here on Sunday. And the fact that the betting line started at Bills -1.5. Now on DraftKings, at least, it's Bills +1.5, Patriots -1.5. They took that first initial, betting line and they're using it as motivation, saying, see, they don't respect us. And the reason why it flipped 3 points is probably mostly because people are betting on New England. So that's why it flipped. But initially, the computers and the models all favored Buffalo. Keep using that, baby. Keep using that kind of motivation because you love to see it. You really do. So, flip it over to the Bruins, who now have won 3 straight games for the first time since their 7-game win streak at the end of October, early November. They're looking pretty good. I can't believe it. They are once again atop the Atlantic Division, now tied with the Lightning. But they're atop the Atlantic Division, and they're getting a lot of scoring from a lot of interesting places. Mark Kastelik has 6 goals. Alex Steves has 6 goals. Fraser Minten has 6 goals, 5 assists, and is a +3. Fraser Minten's 21 years old. And we got him in the Brandon Carlo deal from Toronto. And a first-round pick plus a 4th rounder in last year's draft. All for one guy. And we retained 15% of Carlo's salary, but who cares? It's Brandon Carlo. Listen, I like Carlo. I thought he was a good player, but he got hurt a lot. He had a lot of concussion issues. And the fact that Sweeney was able to swindle Toronto for top 5 protected first-round pick, which is fine because Toronto's not that bad of a team. Let's be honest. They might be in the lottery. As of right now, they are in the lottery. But they're not so bad where they have very little chance of getting that top 5 pick. So that's huge. That would be a second first-round pick in next year's draft on top of ours. And we got this 21-year-old kid who has been killing it. He's taking full advantage of everything that's coming his way. And I'm here for it. I love to see it. And this is where I've said it before and I'll say it again. Don Sweeney, for all his drafting flaws, for all the flack I've thrown his way over the years about signing Swayman, trading Allmark, and not being able to draft, still harping on the 2015 draft from 10 years ago. You had 3 first-round picks, and how many of them are currently on the Boston Bruins right now? And how many of them are in our organization? 0. So, I will still bring that up until I'm, again, proven otherwise. I feel like that's being fair. But when it comes to his trading, when it comes to him being able to identify NHL talent and being able to throw a couple prospects and picks in such a way that brings them over, it's been working out, man. You know, Minton, Lindholm, for all the ups and downs that he's had, he's still a very good defenseman. And clearly, when we sucked for a long while after that 7-game streak, it's because Lindholm was out. So there's been a lot of good with Sweeney's with Sweeney's trades and trade deadlines for NHL ready players. And like I said, this kid Minton, he's 21 years old. He's a +3, which I think is a very underrated stat in hockey. So 6 goals, 5 assists, +3. Help build around him. Make him one of the centerpieces. You know? Don't trade him unless you can get like a stupid, unless you can find somebody so stupid that they'd send, I'm hyperbolic here, I know, but I'm saying that they'd send a Connor McDavid or a Leon Draisaitl and Fraser Minton's like the top part of the deal, then yeah, of course you do that. Otherwise, you take this kid and you help build around him, and hopefully some of the BC kids that we have can come through the system and work themselves out. I mean, BC is an interesting thing. We'll see. We'll wait and see, I guess. But this team has to get younger, and we have to get better at forward. We got to get more talent in. And it seems kind of like we're on that way a little bit. So, listen, I think the Bruins, like I said, I think they're going to sneak into the playoffs on the last day. But if they keep, kind of their ebbs and flows like this, I don't see why they can't. I don't see why they can't be one of the top 3 teams in the Atlantic Division now. So that's a fun one. But now I want to give you my thoughts. So earlier this week, it was announced that Jeff Kent was voted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame on the contemporary, right? Is that what it is? The modern contemporary ballot. Yeah, the Contemporary Baseball Era Committee. Who it's made up of 16 people, and they had to vote between Clemens, Bonds, Don Mattingly, Carlos Delgado, Gary Sheffield, Fernando Valenzuela, and Dale Murphy. And Jeff Kent got in. So the thing that got me was, of course, Roger and Barry aren't in the Hall of Fame. No two, obviously. We're not that's ridiculous, right? We all know that. Unless you hate the steroids and hate, the use of it, then we can have this discussion. I got no problem with that. You can find me all around social media. I'll be more than willing to have this discussion with you. But the fact that we let Jeff Kent into the Baseball Hall of Fame, I find it ridiculous, because outside of the fact that 2 absolute Hall of Famers should be in, now we're just letting people in who were good, above average ball players. What is this, the Hall of Above Average? Or is this the Hall of Fame? And that's my question. Should we be letting in above average players into any Hall of Fame. Or if there are no absolute Hall of Famers on the ballot, we don't let any in. Just because players retire and move on, and then 5 years later, their name is thrown out there, it's almost like everybody is, well, we have to have somebody in, we gotta vote somebody in. And again, there were already guys voted in. Jeff Kent spent 10 years on the ballot and never got over 47% of the votes. And I'll give you his stats. Like I said, good ball player, above average during his San Francisco years, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But he had over 2,400 hits. He had 560 doubles, 47 triples, 377 home runs, most of any second baseman. 15, over 1,500 RBIs. He batted 290, 356 OBP, 500 slugging, and an 855 OPS. And Baseball Reference and probably everybody, probably the numbers and stats say that, or give him one World Series, when the World Series was when he came up with Toronto and got traded, after 60-something games played for them. And he went over to the Mets, I'm pretty sure. And they credit him with that World Series win when Toronto won it in 92. Even though he never played in that World Series. The only World Series he ever played in was the one in San Francisco in 2002 where they lost to the Angels in 7. So I don't credit him with a championship. But he was a 5-time All-Star, 1-time MVP, 4-time Silver Slugger, and 0 Gold Gloves. Now, that's a little bit important for me because 0 Gold Gloves goes to show that he wasn't a defenseman. That was not his game. And with that being said, why, how is he a Hall of Famer? By those metrics. I mean, I had I had the numbers of Dustin Pedroia versus Jeff Kent, and it was pretty comparable. The head-to-head. I mean, Dustin Pedroia hit for the better average over his, over the career. Dustin won multiple championships. He's got the 2 championships. He's got, like I said, he has a higher batting average. He's got more stolen bases. He's got the better on-base percentage. So I don't see why, this is, and that's just over both their careers, right? So both their careers, Dustin's got those things to him. But if you want to just go over the 12 years, because Dustin Pedroia only played 12 years in the league. So starting from Jeff Kent up to his 12th year, Dustin Pedroia's got better numbers. He's got the better WAR. He's got more hits than Jeff Kent. And, he's got 4 Gold Gloves, Dustin has. Dustin was a hell of a defenseman. And Jeff Kent has also been known to be kind of an a-hole to his teammates. So there's a reason why he kept getting 47% of his vote. So the ultimate thing is, though, we're talking about guys who are above average. And like I said, I respect what Jeff Kent did. It helped tremendously that he was in the same lineup as Barry Bonds, batting right after him, who they intentionally walked an exorbitant amount of times. So everything was put on Jeff Kent. And then he just went off in San Francisco out of nowhere. I mean, you got the guy who his best WAR was 3.2 in 1995 when he was 27, and he never hit more than 21 home runs before he went to San Francisco in 1997. And then out of nowhere, so his last 3 years before he went to San Francisco, he hit 12, 9, and 3 home runs. Or excuse me, that it was split between two teams. So he hit 12 home runs, his last 4 years from the Mets, he hit 21 home runs, 14 home runs, 20 home runs, and then 12, which was split between the Mets, and he got traded to Cleveland. Then when he signed with the Giants in 1997, out of nowhere, and I'm pretty sure that AT&T Park, if it's still called that, is more of a pitcher-friendly ballpark, but I digress. Out of nowhere, he jumped at age 29 to 29 home runs, 31 home runs, 23, 33, 22, 37, and then that was his entire time as a Giant. Out of nowhere. And Barry Bonds was his teammate? Not saying anything. I'm thinking it. I'm just not saying it. Again, regardless of whether that's true or not, allegedly, you know what I'm implying, regardless if it's true or not. It's just bizarre. Like, I look at Jeff Kent's career and I'm like, yeah, you had a good career. You did. But you're above average. This is the Hall of Fame. I want guys who are the best of the best, the most talented, to be in the Hall. I don't want my Hall of Fames to be watered down. I don't want guys who were very good for a very short amount of time. And listen, I love Dustin Pedroia. I want him in the Hall of Fame. But if I objectively look at it, before Jeff Kent got in, I think I would err on the side of no. I'm sorry. Unfortunately for Pedroia, he only lasted 12 seasons, and the final 2 were he barely played because he was hurt so much. And it just sucks. Like, Dustin Pedroia should have been a Hall of Famer. He had a 300 batting average up until, his final year where his batting average was so bad those final 2 years in the short amount of games that he played, it dropped him down to a sub 300 BA for his career, which sucks because he was a 300 and above hitter. And people sleep on Dustin Pedroia's stat, like on what he did. So that's listen, again, with respect to Kent and some of the other recent Hall of Fame winners, it's almost like the Hall of Fame in every sport is being diluted time after time after time because the guys that are getting in were very good or above average for a very short window, or that very short window, they were elite. Okay, they were the best during that very short window over maybe a 2 to 4 year span. But then the rest of their career has been average or above average. So what, are we basing them in just because of that 2 to 4 year time frame? Or are we going to really set in, hey, these guys, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, they're Hall of Famers? Because when you look at what they did even prior to Barry Bonds blowing up, Roger Clemens, they were still elite and still doing top tier stuff. Barry, again, the whole thing with steroids in baseball, it helped you go longer. It helped you stay healthier longer. It's not like it gave you better eyesight or, it just made you last in the gym longer. It made you heal faster. So when you're playing 162 games over the course of 5 to 6 months, it makes sense. You'd want to do that. And I used to be one of these guys who hated the steroid people, who never wanted them in, absolutely not, under zero circumstances. But the older I got, the more I studied it, the more I understood, where I'm like, here I thought back then when I was a kid that, I gave you better eyesight, where you're like, that baseball became a freaking beach ball. That's why you were hitting it, and it, inflated your muscles and you got stronger out of it. Like, why you do get stronger, but you get stronger because you're in the gym, because you're pushing yourself for a longer period of time rather than doing it naturally where you can't go as long or you break down easier. You have a bad month during the middle of the season, dog days of summer. But for these guys, they were good to go the entire time. And that's why Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. Steroids, we should be, who cares at this point? Because not for nothing, Bud Selig, let it go on. You telling me that they didn't know? Please, they knew. It just so happened that one investigative journalist dug through the right trash. That's it. So, give me my Hall of Fames back where it's legitimate Hall of Famers. Legitimate. Not short period. Not guys who are above average. But legitimate. If that means you shrink the Hall of Fame, so be it. So, tell me what you think. Don't forget to comment down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Boston Sports Summit, on X, BOS Sports Summit, and then on YouTube. And don't forget to check out the Grid Network. Bunch of great guys who, again, talk about sports. Great content over there. And we got Saturday morning tailgate. Talk about some college football. Got a big thing with Notre Dame this past weekend. So, you'll hear some more about that on Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. But otherwise, this is the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnett. We are presented by the Grid Network. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you all. And I'll see you next week. And as always, have a great weekend. And God bless. Thank you.